Welcome, everyone. I'm Mike Brashazade.
And I'm Ashley Ward.
And you're listening to the What Matters podcast, and our mission
to spotlight top RIAs, wealth managers, and investment professionals who are redefining wealth management.
Join us as we dive into their journey, strategies, and insights.
Whether you're an investor or an inspiring pro, this is for you.
Get ready for impactful conversations on the What Matters podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the What Matters podcast. I'm your host, Mike Brashazade.
And I'm Ashley Ward.
And today we have the honor of speaking with Tim Pagliara. I hope I pronounced that right. The founder, chairman, and chief investment officer of CapWealth Advisors based in Franklin, Tennessee.
Tim has been named the #1 wealth advisor in Tennessee, both by Forbes and Barron, and also the author of his book, Another Big Life, How the Government and Business Stole Billions from American Dreams of Home Ownership and Got Caught. Thank you for joining us today, Tim. Sorry about that. That's a handful of a book name, but I'm excited to hear all about it.
That is. No, great to be with you guys too.
Tim, I gotta get a copy of your book. Did you have the entire subject line or the entire name of the book on the front page there?
Yeah.
I love it.
The front.
Well, we're so excited for you to join us today, Tim. Let's dive right in. You've had a remarkable journey in the financial industry, culminating in the founding of CapWealth Advisors. Could you share with our listeners the inspiration behind starting your own firm and the experiences that led you to founding CapWealth in 2000 after 20 years in the financial industry?
Yeah. Well, thank you. It was I think it was just kind of the logical progression of my career and how the industry was evolving. I started with Edward Jones and Company while I was in law school and graduate school. I wrote their Series 7 program. And so I always had kind of a planning, wealth management, bent, which was a little unusual back then. In the 80s, we were smiling and dialing and selling bonds and, developing a lot of customer relationships through transactions. And as we got through the 80s, there was a business consultant, famous business consultant, Peter Drucker, said, sometimes the best thing you can do for a client is tell them not to do anything, hold, and not sell a security. And that's how real wealth is accumulated. And so we were paid on transactions. And so this whole process of wealth management, and when I mean wealth management, not transaction management, wealth management started to evolve. And I left Edward Jones, went to a Louisville-based firm that had been really in that business. They were very unusual. Hilliard Lyons owned a trust company, still in existence today. They were started back in 1854. And that's when I perfected the craft of managing money for clients to a specific objective, and had some ownership in the firm. We took the bite. PNC Bank bought us in 1998. I took 1999 to figure out what I wanted to really do in the next part of my career, and walked away, left a lot of deferred comp on the table, and just decided that, I wanted to own my own firm and build it out in the way that it made sense to me, and how to take care of clients.
Really cool.
Yeah. Turned out a huge offer from Legg Mason at the time. And Jim Brinkley was the president and CEO. And I remember it was a lot of money. It was over $4 million, and to run the entire state of Tennessee for him. And he was such a great guy, and we had very candid conversations leading up to it. And when I turned him down, he couldn't believe it. And I said, Jim, you just don't have your heart in this part of the wealth management business. You want to manage money. That's the direction you want to take the firm. And I want to go in a different direction, where I'm working directly with clients. And anyway, they sold the brokerage side of Legg Mason a couple of years later to Smith Barney. And became exclusively just a money manager. So there were a lot of changes in the industry at that time, and I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity and the capital to start my own firm.
So when you started your own firm, what year was that again?
That would have been in 2000.
So when you started your own firm, did you have, if you don't mind me asking, some sort of a non-compete from your former company, or how'd that work?
I never signed one. and, and we had I was on the board of directors. We had a really good relationship. And, people follow the quality of the advice and the quality of the care that they're getting from their advisor. And now that's changed a lot. They've done a lot with non-competes and handcuffs and all sorts of things. But at the time, no, I didn't have one. And so it was a pretty easy follow. And I transitioned my business cold turkey. I told the clients I was not going to be in the transaction business anymore. And we went to, an individual managed account where we selected individual securities. We didn't hire money managers. We used some mutual funds in areas where we didn't have expertise. And so it was it was kind of a novel thing at the time because the industry still hadn't fully embraced it.
So building your company, and I know, let's put it this way: RIA database is fairly inaccurate, right? So, from what I see here, you've grown your firm to about 1.4 billion. Is that correct?
That's right. A little 1.4 billion now. We have 17 total employees, including me. I've taken kind of an academic approach to the business. We're not great salespeople, but I employ 2 CPAs, 3 chartered financial analysts, 5 MBAs. I'm a lawyer. And so we take a pretty holistic view towards everything, that we do for a client. And so that kind of attracts a certain client that, we're real comfortable with. We're not into any of the get rich quick schemes. In fact, we push back on a lot of that.
So out of 17 total employees, how many advisors are there?
Well, there would be, I would count 3, 4, 5, 6 of us would have active responsibility with clients. Everybody's on salary and bonus, so there's no, incentive to, we don't walk all over each other. It's, it's a big team. And then I've got a great investment management group that kind of executes the strategies both to make sure the client's accounts are properly aligned for their investment objectives, and then offers up our view of the world and translating what all this means right now and all the confusion that's out in the world. We try and give the advisors the talking points to really communicate with the clients. I always say managing money is easy. It's managing people that's difficult.
Right.
We're in the communication business, and so we have to excel at that, to be successful.
And have you grown the business organically or inorganically? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's obviously there's organic growth. We get new accounts, on a very regular basis. The business has grown at 11% a year consistently for almost 25 years now. So it has a built-in formula, to it. A lot of it is just the consistency of returns, that the clients get. Clients are in a little different phase of their life right now in a firm like ours, that instead of accumulating as much, they're spending.
Right.
We're helping them with distributions. That slows up the growth just a little bit. You have to go out, get new business. But yeah, we're still, I think our asset base has moved 40%, up 40% in the last 3.5, 4 years. So, so it's good.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And so I'm curious, when you started in 2000, was it just you started your own firm? Did you have anyone else that you brought on right away? What was the team like back in the beginning?
I brought on two, there were guys that worked with me, and they had their own book of business. We really were in kind of a shared expenses mode, and that evolved, I guess, by 2007. When the financial crisis started, it was really hard on them, and so I bought up, their interests in fixtures and things like that, and then I owned 100% of it at that point, and I had a really neat experience. In the crisis, I had a client that had a lot of money borrowed, and the banks were squeezing people down, tremendously on refinances and trying to grab their assets, making it difficult for them to continue, in many cases, pushing them to insolvency. And so I got on the phone with this one regional bank in the South, we'll call it, and they were really they were trying to get a client to sell out a big position of his bank stocks at the very bottom. I mean, this is the time period where Fifth Third Bank got down to $1 and Bank of America $2, and who does that? But that's what they were pushing, and they wanted to they wanted him to do some really stupid things as a condition to keeping the loan, and there were a lot of lender liability suits going on at the time, and so I think there was 5 people on the call, and I just went after all of them. And about a day later, I got a call from one of the people that was present, and she told me, she said, "Look," she said, "you are doing the right thing for your client. Don't back down. You're going to win, but don't ever tell anybody that, because I'll lose my job." And back then we had Outlook, little task pads on the side, and I had her name and phone number on there, and I said, "I'm going to hire her when this straightens out." And about 8 months later, I called her, and she remembered me, and I said, "You don't know it yet, but you're coming to work at my firm."
I
Who is
like
this?
that.
Who is this arrogant guy? Anyway, so that was how I met Phoebe Venable, and Phoebe was just a natural. She started Genspring Family Office in Nashville, and had managed all of the investment process for SunTrust in the Southeast, and so it took me about 3 months, and she joined 6 months later, and she's been my partner ever since, and she's CEO of the company now. Which I get a kick out of it, because I just got back from a Forbes conference, and everybody's talking about the glass ceiling, and getting women involved, and the importance of women financial advisors, and 67% of all the money is going to be controlled by women, and I just grin, because my whole firm's full of women, and they're the best. In fact, I don't even. There are times where I have to go in real early to be boss, because once they roll in at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, my day's done. I mean,
Ah,
they rule the roost, And one of the best is actually my daughter. She just got. She started right out of college, been with us 13 years. She was just named one of the top 40 under 40 in Nashville, too. So,
oh, wow.
Wow.
yeah. So I embraced the millennial generation, too. And we've developed young talent for the transition. And so it's been just great. Yeah.
That's wonderful. How's that been? I mean, your daughter, how many years now has she been with the firm?
13.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's fun.
it is. And, and I give Phoebe a lot of the credit because you can imagine fathers and daughters occasionally bump heads. And she's very strong willed. I have no idea where she gets that from. And she, Phoebe's done a magnificent job of, mentoring her and developing her into the quality of the advisor she is today. And, great person.
That's wonderful. So you're also the author of your book, Another Big Lie. I won't say the rest of it. I mean, because I kind of butchered it the first time. A lot of words there. Another Big Lie.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to write this book? And can you share with our listeners what your book is really about?
Well, in the housing crisis, a lot of things went off the rails. And one of them was we had an oversupply of single family homes. We had these reckless lending policies that the banks had initiated. And, you remember there were people that couldn't afford one home that owned three, because
Right.
they didn't have to qualify. They called them liar loans, ninja loans, no income, no, anything. And so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which Fannie Mae was started back in 1938 during FDR's presidency, and Henry Morgenthau, they had a problem with people. The actual loans back then were 5 years. And if you went back in to qualify for a loan and the price of your home had dropped 50% and there was 25% unemployment and you didn't have a job, they started putting people out on the street. And the banking system's it's a pro-cyclical business model. And what I mean by that, and you'll get this intuitively, when things get tough, what do the regulators do? They come in and they say, stop making loans, improve the quality of your loans. And so they can't even loan money during that time period. So we were just circling the drain and nothing seemed to work. And we were putting people out on the street. And so Fannie Mae was created in that environment. They went to the banks, they bought those loans, and then they negotiated 30-year terms. And so all you had to do is make your payment, you owned your home, and it became a tremendous source of financial security. So in the financial crisis, and this is all documented, it's in my book, and I won't bore you too much, but the Federal Crisis Inquiry Commission, 92% of all the loans went bad were issued by big banks. And Fannie Mae, and Freddie Mac, even though they had a much larger percentage of the total loans outstanding, they were only responsible for 8%. So they put them in conservatorship. That conservatorship was supposed to last for a relatively short period of time. And they just abused these companies until finally in August of last year, a jury in Washington, D.C. found that the government had violated the covenant of good faith and fair dealing. It's a relatively modest award, but it was an $800 million judgment against, Federal Housing Finance Administration. And so the book, it's a chronology of all these events, and here we are right now. We're in the middle of another housing crisis.
Yeah.
Only
So
this,
I was going to say, let's talk about that real quick. And I apologize if I interrupted there because I want to get your point of view. So we had an overbuilding of homes back then, right? There was an oversupply. I was, in the mortgage business for 26 years prior to getting into this space. And I had sold my company back in 2020. So Ashley and we had met in the mortgage business. So, I'm pretty familiar. Well, I would say extremely familiar with the business. And, getting in the business in 1993 when rates were at 9% and, chasing them all the way down to 2% was, it was interesting, right? To say the least. What I wanted to do was get your opinion on, there was an oversupply of homes then, right? And do you think that all the builders they just got scarred pretty bad, and that's the reason now why there's just, how do you want to say it? There's such little inventory because they're not overbuilding like they were before.
Well, what happened, the industry fundamentally changed in '08. The most capital intensive part of the building process is lot development, land development. And so when the builders got out of that, the big Pulte's, the rest of them, they got out of the land development. And at the same time, state and local governments started putting more and more responsibility for the cost of that land development onto the backs of the consumers through these development arms. And they did everything from impact fees for schools to, a neighborhood today, typically it's got sidewalks, it's got, fiber optics, it's got street lights, it's, all sorts of things that didn't occur. And so now, especially in communities like Franklin, Tennessee, affordability starts somewhere around $1 million because it costs $400,000 just to buy a site to build a home. And places like California, other places, that's the real challenge. And during that period, especially the last 10 years, we went into this tremendous underbuilding cycle. And so we're 5 million units of single family homes short in what I call workforce housing. And, it's going to take something to jumpstart that. And one of the things we've advocated for is the government owns 80% of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. It's time to get conservatorship. They've been reformed. These companies now have they have $8 trillion worth of business on their books, 753 credit scores, 55 to 60% loan to value. And they can be the engine of correcting this problem of this imbalance, bring interest rates down a little bit. And when the government pulls them out and they monetize the interest, the 80% that they own, there's $100 billion, no budget revenue. This is not borrowed money. This is monetizing and correcting a problem that's gone on for 15 years. And that, give you a perspective, $100 billion is $230 million for each of the 435 congressional districts in the United States. And so there are plans of how you can do that to alleviate these problems and the shortages of for working families, and it's also been compounded. Now we have 10 million immigrants, legal or otherwise, or illegal, and they have to be housed as well. You read about New York. New York has a 1% vacancy rate in housing, single family housing and multifamily. And there's just no homes. So, the pendulum always swings, and now we're back at this other side of it in the real estate market.
How long do you think that will take to correct itself?
Well, if they started today and made plans to get Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac out of conservatorship, started that process, they could have that money going into these communities to build out, to create building sites, and 18 months would be, a good start on it. We may see a little competition in this presidential race as to which president wants to reclaim the moniker of, the president that restored the American dream. You may see it in Biden's State of the Union. You may see it in candidate Trump's, bag of tricks when they finally stop calling each other names and they focus a little bit on policy, maybe. A novel idea, but that's where we could be headed.
Yeah, it's a great point there. So I kind of want to shift gears back to your firm a little bit. Building a successful firm requires resistance, responsibility your team has your team encountered any significant challenges while building and growing your firm? And if so, how did you navigate those?
Well, it's always a challenge, when you're building a team, because you got to find, this process of discovery. What is the highest, best use of the talent that people have in an organization? And sometimes their perception of what they're good at is different than your perception of it. And so you have to, you have to work through that. So, for example, I have a great chief financial officer now. I mean, and not only is he great for the things he does and helping us project and measure our business, but he is he's young, he's energetic, and I struggled with that to get the right person there. I've got this great guy that was with me. He's been with me 13 years now. And Ryan has kind of a dual hat. He's compliance and he's our technology. Well, technology today, it's about cybersecurity, compliance with an ever evolving SEC set of regulations. Um, so he's, fantastic. Tracy, she's been with me 34 years. Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow.
And she's now chief operating officer of the firm. And, they're just great people. So it's building that team. That's a big part of it. And then the second part of it, especially in a period like this, is, this whole thing called FOMO, fear of missing out. Clients want to gravitate towards the easiest thing, get it out on the table. It's NVIDIA. Everybody wants to know about NVIDIA, and it's a, it's a